everyone, welcome to Dancing with Bella. So I decided to dress as a witch today because I never dress up for Halloween, and although it's not Halloween yet, it's right around the corner, so I kind of want to go with the theme. I'm not really into holidays, I really don't celebrate holidays, but one thing for sure is I honestly love dressing up. I wish we could do it all year round. And I think that's why I became a stripper, because you know, you could play around with your look and all that. So today I have a very sad yet chilling story to tell you guys. It just crushed my heart when I was researching this story. Some of y'all might be familiar with this story. You guys might have heard it on the news, or you guys might actually have worked with this dancer. I just learned about this story and I'm gonna try to tell her story as best as possible. And honestly, I hope I don't cry in this video because I really felt connected to this girl. She was a dancer, and she was the same age as I was when she passed away. I could basically feel her story within myself, if that makes sense. I really feel for her, you know what I mean? Nobody should ever die this way. The way she died is very disgusting and inhumane. I don't know how another human being can actually do this to somebody else. I can't comprehend it. I can't. I would just, you know, like to kind of bring light to who she was and unfortunately how she passed away. I guess let's get started. So basically this is a chilling murder and dismemberment of Jaren Lockhart. Jaren Lockhart was a 22-year-old mother, girlfriend, daughter, sister, friend, and so many people loved her and still love her to this day. Jaren Lockhart was such a beautiful girl, and she was a stripper like many of us are here on my channel. She was last seen June 6, 2012 around 2 a.m. in the morning. She was leaving the Temptations Gentlemen's Club in Bourbon Street, which is in New Orleans, with a couple, the woman being Margaret Sanchez and Terry Speaks. According to reports, Margaret Sanchez and Terry Speaks were previously at another strip club called Stilettos, and they were basically going around asking the dancers if they would go home with them or if they would have a threesome with them, basically asking for a private show. So when they couldn't find what they were looking for at Stilettos, they stepped foot at Temptations next. And if you guys can see in this video, you guys can see Margaret Sanchez and Terry Speaks walking into Temptations Gentlemen's Club. After stepping foot in Temptations, they still had that focus that they wanted a threesome and they wanted a private show. So they come across this girl who leads them to Jaren Lockhart. This girl basically tells the couple that Jaren is desperate to make money. She really needs the money and she needs to make rent. After hearing this, they basically walk over to Jaren and start talking to her. According to the assistant DA, Doug Freeze, they were talking for a little while. All of a sudden, Jaren rushes to the locker room. She gets dressed, grabs a couple of her things, checks herself in the mirror, then quickly rushes out of the locker room, concerned that she was going to miss out on the opportunity to make more money. Before leaving the club, she did stop by and talk to some other dancers and a waitress. She basically told them that she was going to go somewhere else to make her rent because she had only made $75 and they were going to pay her $700. The waitress basically asked her if she was safe, and basically that was the last time any of her co-workers last seen her. After that, the trio walked out of Temptations. Some reports do say that they were seen at Stilettos and another club called Cutie Pie. After the three were seen club hopping, the last time she was seen was at 2:21 a.m. June 6, 2012, as the three of them walked from Bourbon Street to Iberville Street. All three of them jumped into Margaret Sanchez's green Chevrolet Lumina. Then they drove off to Kenner, which is where the couple lived. People have said that Jaren, Margaret, and Terry had known each other previously from working at Stilettos in 2009, and that's why Jaren didn't feel like she was in danger when she went with them. At the beginning, I mentioned that Jaren had a boyfriend, and before she was killed, they were living at Mid-City Hotel, and when Jaren didn't show up to their Mid-City Hotel after her shift at Temptations, Jaren's boyfriend got concerned, so he went over to the police department, filed a missing persons report. 8 hours after Jaren was last seen on camera, Terry Speaks drove Margaret Sanchez to her job in eastern New Orleans at a bar where she worked. Her co-workers basically described her as very unclean, dirty, and just basically unkept. A few days later, Jaren's dismembered body started washing up on shore in the Mississippi beaches. Her torso was found first on the beach at Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. In the days ahead, her legs and her head started washing up on shore. Her body was mutilated, her skin was removed, that way nobody would be able to identify her body. And although her body was basically unrecognizable, they were able to identify her basically on the description that her boyfriend had given in the missing persons report, as well as her DNA. Some of her clothing was found and some of her body parts were found as well, but not all. Margaret and Terry then became suspects after they were seen on camera with Jaren Lockhart. Investigators arrested Margaret and Terry on June 13, 2012 for unrelated charges. Since they didn't have enough evidence to basically link the couple to the murder, Margaret Sanchez ended up being released from custody, and Terry Speaks ended up going to prison for failure to register as a sex offender. While Terry Speaks is in prison, Margaret and Terry keep in communication and exchange phone calls and emails. But then Terry gets angered when he finds out that Margaret had moved to Vegas and was dating someone else. He then started to threaten and blackmail her when basically Margaret told him that she wanted to move in with this man named Johnny and she wanted to marry him. On a phone call, he even told her, "I sit here in prison keeping you out of prison and you're gonna marry someone else? I'm not gonna live with this anymore. I am going to live with the guilt inside of me for you. I'm the reason you're still out here. Where's the gratitude for me?" he asked. He even made hints saying that he kept both of the women's panties for proof in case basically she got off course or something. The whole time he was in prison sending messages and calling Margaret, they were basically using code. But when this came up, everything just blew up and he started sending her messages that he was basically going to give her up if she ended up marrying this guy named Johnny or whatever. June 20th, 2016, Margaret Sanchez pleaded guilty to manslaughter and dismemberment of Jaren Lockhart. According to the Jefferson's Parish District Attorney's Office, she also pleaded guilty for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to obstruct justice in the killing of 2012. She was sentenced to 40 years for manslaughter and obstruction of justice and 20 years for the conspiracy charge. Terry Speaks was previously found guilty by a jury of second-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to obstruct justice in June 2015. Terry Speaks was sentenced to life in prison in the Louisiana penitentiary. No one really knows where Jaren died, but the authorities think that she probably died at the Kenner home just because all of this probably couldn't be done in a public place and they needed to have basically like a safe home, you know what I mean? So the way Jaren died was very brutal and very, very sad. Basically, one of them pinned her to the ground and the other one had a 4.5-inch knife and stabbed her to the chest. And to them, that was not enough. After killing her with one stab wound to the chest, they decided that they were going to dismember her body. After that, her remains were dumped in the Mississippi coast in Hancock County. They did do a toxicology report during Jaren's autopsy, and it did come back that she did have opiates in her system, but the pathologist ended up ruling that out as a fatal overdose, seeing that she had a stab in her chest. Terry Speaks is gonna spend his whole life in prison, and I honestly hope he rots in there. With Margaret Sanchez, I hope she never makes it out of prison, and I hope she rots in there as well. As for Jaren Lockhart's family and the people who knew her, all her loved ones, I'm so sorry this happened. No one deserves to go through this. She had her whole life ahead of her and so many people that loved her. These people that did this to her were very disgusting, and there is no excuse for anybody to do that to another person. I'm just really, really heartbroken, and really they accomplished nothing because now they're in prison and she has a daughter who's gonna grow up without a mother. Like I said, I personally didn't know her, but now I feel like I do know her, and ever since I learned about her story, I've been thinking about her, and that's basically why I did this video, is because I want her story to live on and for you guys to know who she was. I hope that by me sharing this story with you guys, we can all relate to her and just keep her memory alive. And basically this is how I want to pay my respects to her. This leads me to conclusion where I just plead that you guys be careful out there. Just try to be safe, try to be cautious. I've given you guys some of my tips on how I try to be safe, but we just never know what other people's intentions are. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love you guys so much. If you guys have any comments, make sure to comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.